everybody. My name's Kevin Smith, and this is my great friend, Ralph Garman. Give it up for him.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. Very special panel. It's going to tug at my heartstrings, I know, but we're so happy to be here today to pay tribute to a fallen hero, Mr. Adam West. We're going to be talking about Adam West TV's Batman today. Joining Kevin and I on stage are a couple old friends of Adam's who are going to talk about what it was like to know and to work with him for the past, I don't know, 50 years or so. Starting with the very first movie Catwoman ever from the 1966 motion picture Batman, Lee Merriweather, everybody. Everybody say hi to Lee. And our next guest, what can you say about this gentleman? The only words that come to mind are holy icon. Here he is, the boy wonder himself, Mr. Burt Ward, ladies and gentlemen. Let's everybody have a seat. Holy turnout!
Now, folks out in the audience, how many people watched Batman 66, as they now call it? Wait for the question, long after it was produced. The power of that show has traveled decades. There are shows that were made around the same time that simply can't be watched today. They don't really work. Batman still works, and that has everything to do with the folks behind the camera, the creative community, but especially the folks who are in front of the camera. And we got two of them with us today, and we're going to talk to them about one of their friends who's not with us anymore.
I was wondering, Bert, when was the first time you ever met Adam? The very first meeting, what was that first impression like for you guys?
Well, this is in July of 1965, probably before everybody here was born. I had a screen test with Adam West. I was introduced to him. I met him, and you know, we started talking before. We had about 15 minutes before the screen test, and in 5 minutes, this man had me laughing, and I haven't stopped laughing for more than 50 years. I mean, Adam is really, not only a great guy, and for all of you that loved him, he would want you not to mourn for him. He spent his whole life entertaining people. He wants everybody to be happy. But I got to tell you something, in my opinion, he's really the only Batman, right? I mean, he's the real one. Great actors that have done the movies, but when it comes to really Batman, that's my dear friend.
And Lee, did you meet Adam before you started working on the feature film, or was that the first time you had met him?
It was the first time. I had to audition for the film. I walked into a room of about, at least 50 gorgeous women sitting, waiting to audition. And I said, oh, this is not going to happen. I won't be able to do this at all. But I had worked on the script, and they had sent me pages, and I did, and then I went into the room where gentlemen were sitting, but Adam wasn't there. I was hoping that he would be there. And I thought, well, at least just do your thing, and maybe you'll be able to work with him, maybe someday. And I couldn't believe it. As I finished my audition, which included some of the Russian correspondent, because I played 2 roles in it, just as I left the room and I was praying, oh, please, I want this job. And I heard that someone, and I think it was the director, and I heard him say, you know, I didn't tell her to do any of that, because I had sat in a chair and I did, yes, and I kneaded my lap like a cat, you know, and so Thank heavens, by the time I got home, my agent had left a call, and I thought, oh, okay. And I called him, and he says, "You got the part. You're going into wardrobe tomorrow." What?
Thank God you licked your hands.
Yeah. It's a little tip for you other actresses out there. When you audition for something, start licking your body parts. Apparently it's good luck. Now, Bert, you spent so many years, I mean, you guys only worked on the show for what, 3 years? 2.5 years?
3.5.
3.5 years,
3.5, yeah.
plus the feature film. And then you guys are bonded together for the remainder of your lives
Right.
as the dynamic duo, and you do cons like this, and you traveled everywhere together. The friendship that was forged over those years must have been even stronger than working together, I would assume.
Absolutely. Well, for Adam and I, not only did we work together during the week, I mean 14-hour days on Batman, but because we were personal friends and our families got along, that even on weekends occasionally we would go out and play tennis, for example, and people would come to a public court and see us there and kind of look and say, "Oh my God, that's Batman and Robin playing tennis!" And we had a lot of fun, and of course we've done lots of personal appearances. I've actually been to more than 7,000 personal appearances and signed more than 8.5 million autographs. And
How did you figure that? You just one day did the math on it?
you know, yeah, I sort of keep track. Rough, you know, you can only be within a couple of 100,000 here or there. But in any event, we really had a great time, Adam and I, and even this year, earlier this year in Dallas, 80,000 paid attendance to come see us. A few months before, Toronto, 160,000, you know, and I mean, I got to tell you, it is kind of mind-blowing, you know, even like we made an appearance in Las Vegas and we went through a casino and there's an 11.5-foot tall, one-armed bandit Batman with our photos like twice life-size. And they even have now a new pinball game out. I don't know if you've seen it, but it shines the bat signal on the ceiling. You know, you play Batman 66 pinball that both Adam and I recorded more than 300 lines that are on the pinball machine. So depending what happens, it's, you know, Batman or Robin speaking.
Go ahead. No, sorry. You spent a long time with the guy, and I hate to narrow it down to one, but what's your favorite Adam West memory at this point, after a lifetime together?
You know, what made Adam so wonderful, I mean, so many people ask me, for example, well, you know, I see his persona on television, but what was he really like when he wasn't on television? And I can tell each and every one of you unequivocally that my dear friend Adam West was exactly the same off camera as he was on camera. He thought of himself bigger than life. I mean, he once told me that he really understood what it was like to play Batman after watching Charlton Heston play Moses and part the Red Sea.
Adam had a great sense of humor, and he would, you know, I got to be friends with him for the last 15 years or so, working on Family Guy and spending time together. He enjoyed laughing and making people laugh more than anybody I knew, and he always loved to break you up with a joke. And I was wondering, when you were working together, was it hard to keep a straight face sometimes? Because I'm sure he was probably having fun with you guys on set as well.
Well, it wasn't so much the straight face, it's that Adam had a, you know, our show, I think what made Batman successful, and you guys are the fans, you would be able to tell even better than me, but we used to play with our audience. We used to say that we put on our tights to put on the world. And our scripts were written very straight for kids. We played it straight. I mean, and yet for the adults, there was lots of double meanings and double insinuations and all this suggestiveness. So rather than crack us up in something funny like a comic would do, what made everybody's eyebrows raise is with his very suggestive things that he would say to people. I mean, we would go out and make appearances, and maybe some a young lady would come up and she was very cute, and he'd say to her, "Would you like to touch my bat?" And he'd put his cowl forward, and then, you know, maybe they'd kiss him on the cheek, and he'd say, "Oh," you know, he says, "I'm beginning to feel strange stirrings in my utility belt." So he had this way of saying things that were incredibly suggestive, and yet, you know, weren't raunchy or anything, but boy, it sure made your eyebrows raise.
You can make that joke to your grandma and she'd be like, stop it.
Again.
And how great that we got one last performance from Adam as Batman in the new animated movie, Batman vs. Two-Face. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. It's a great, I think it's even better than the first one, quite frankly.
I do too, and you know, we are so fortunate because the villain, Two-Face, is being portrayed by none other than William Shatner. So here you have the two most iconic TV shows in history, Batman and Star Trek, with the actors working together. And I had the pleasure of doing a panel at the New York Comic Con 2 weeks ago. There was a premiere of the movie, and up on the panel, I sat next to William Shatner. I really hadn't spoken to him much before that other than just say hello. But let me tell you, this man, I mean, I don't know how old he is, but he is so razor sharp. He is so quick-witted, and he's got a very funny sense of humor, and it really kind of reminded me of Adam. So it was very touching.
And we also get a performance from Lee Merriweather in the new animated film as well, as a defense attorney. You're terrific in the movie also, Lee.
I'm so glad to hear it. I haven't seen it or heard anything.
You haven't seen it yet?
No.
Can we get a copy for Lee, for God's sake? She's in the movie. Can we do that? And I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but there's a great moment that is sort of a tribute to your performance as Catwoman in the film as well. So it's very entertaining. When you go to see it, you'll enjoy it, and we'll talk about it then.
I want to take this moment, though, to shout out Burton, of course, the late, great Adam, because my morality came from watching that show. I was a little boy when I started watching, about 4 or 5, and it was in reruns, of course. I watched it on black and white TV with rabbit ears and tinfoil on it. And every day they'd run 2 episodes back to back, usually the first part and then the second part of the adventure. Sometimes they split them over days as well. And even though I'd seen every episode, I was like, no, will the giant crab eat him? Like, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but still. So I went to church. I was a Catholic school kid. I was an altar boy and stuff like that. But my morality didn't come from Jesus and the Bible. It came from watching you and Adam West. You guys taught me it was better to be good than to be bad. If you could help, do it. Like, and it was a world, nice. 2 characters that have all the means at their disposal to just like wrap themselves up in their own world and not deal with others. But instead, we're always like, how can we help Commissioner? I honestly feel that has a lot to do with who I became, who a lot of people became, because that was our first entree into the world of comic books and genre. That was my first Batman. Adam West and you were my first Batman and Robin, and I've loved all the incarnations of the characters, but you never forget your first. You guys kind of made me the person I am today, so thank you for that.
Doesn't that show you that he has excellent taste?
Yes.
And also, as we grew up as kids watching it, it also was, I think, the shining example of what friendship was. If you had a best friend when you were a kid, you guys were playing Batman and Robin together because that was the ultimate level of friendship you could achieve, was those 2 guys hanging out. And then as you got older, I think the reason the show still works so well in the feature film as well is because you would appreciate it at one level as a kid, and then as you get older, all new layers start to open up to you, so it grows up with you as you do. You get to appreciate it for many, many years.
I would have to, you know, listen, I tell you, I love it when to go out, because people say sometimes, well, gee, you know, you go make these appearances, so many people, doesn't it wear you down? I say no, because, you know, you meet people that come up, and the kids that watch Batman when it came out are now the adults that have their own kids. And what for me is really entertaining is when people come up, and maybe it's a family and mom and dad and the 2 kids, and the dad will, for that moment that we're right in front of each other, all of a sudden he'll start talking like he was when he was a kid. And I got to play Robin, and my brother played Batman, and we put our bath towels around our necks with our clothespins, and we jumped off the couch, and their kids are looking at him like, Dad? Dad? And then the mother will say something like, oh, and I was in love with Robin. And then, Mom, come on, you know. And it really just shows you how amazing life can be for all of us, because all of us are like, I don't care how old you are, you can be a kid of all ages. You know, I don't want to grow up.
And the thing about Adam, I think that he appreciated, was that to be a performer and to be part of a project that will last forever. I mean, let's face it, it's over 50 years now, and the love for this show and for the movie has not diminished. To be a performer and to get one role like that in a lifetime that you can make people happy with and entertain with for decades after it's done, it's a pretty unique experience. Not a lot of performers get to do that.
It is, and you know, we are asked questions like, well, what about typecasting and stuff like that? And the way I like to describe it is this. If you think of a glass that is full, it could be full with 100 different roles you portrayed as an actor, or it could be filled with one thing that is so spectacular and some other things around it, but the one thing that is so spectacular, either way, it's still full. And you know, for us, Adam and I, we loved every minute. We really had fun, and I think the fact that we had fun translated to the audience that saw that we were having fun and we made it fun for everybody.
This is definitely a fan question that I've had since I was 5 years old. Did you guys ever change outfits just to see what it would look like?
Well, we had some outtakes where we ran to the polls in Wayne Manor in our library, and if we jumped on the wrong poles, you see, people ask, how can you change so fast going down the pole? And Adam used to explain that, well, movie magic, we had a wardrobe man who slid down the pole behind us and helped us get dressed. But if you got on the wrong pole, you'd be in the wrong costume.
I don't think Adam would have fit into Bert's costume very well. I don't think that would have been a good fit.
Well, it was expandable, thank goodness.
That's a whole other problem you had with that costume, that it was expandable. Yeah.
Tell them the story about driving on the first day. That shot with the door.
Shooting the pilot?
Shooting the pilot.
Oh, you mean coming, oh.
In the Batmobile?
You know, people say, oh, it must have been so much fun making that show, and it was fun, but it was very dangerous. In today's world, I think people in production have a safer environment. But at the time, this was my very first shot, my very first day in the Batmobile. I went into the Bronson Canyon that's in Hollywood. They have a cave there. And I got into the Batmobile because it was dark. It was kind of hard to see. I thought it was Adam sitting next to me, but it wasn't. It was somebody else. And I asked him, well, who are you? And he says, my name is Hubie. I said, yeah, but what are you doing here? He said, I'm a stuntman. It's a very dangerous stunt I'm about to do, and they don't want to take a chance of Adam West getting hurt. I said, well, why is it so dangerous? Oh, we have to come out at 55 miles an hour. We got to make a sharp left turn. This sign is going to go down. We got to go over it. And I said, geez, you know, do I have a stuntman? And they said, yeah. The guy said, you have a stuntman. I said, well, I wonder where he is. Oh, he's having coffee with Adam West. And I said, well, wait a minute. So they said, all right, roll it up, close it up. We're going to start. And I said, no, wait. So the assistant director came over. He said, Bert, what is it? You're holding everything up. I said, this man's telling me it's a dangerous shot. He says, yes, it is. I said, yeah, but I've got a stuntman, but he's over having coffee. Why am I sitting here in this seat if it's so dangerous? He says, because we can't use him. I said, why can't you use him? Well, because he doesn't look like you. Oh my God, why would you hire somebody to be a stuntman for you if he doesn't look like you? Couldn't find anybody else. So I did the shot, came out at 55 miles an hour. Unexpectedly, my door flew open. And the centrifugal force was throwing me out the door, and I so luckily reached behind and I caught my little finger around the gear shift knob, but it kept me from falling out, but my finger came out of joint. And in about 2 minutes, my finger in the glove was twice the normal size. And they ran over because it knocked the cameraman off the camera truck. It knocked a big arc lamp down. Somebody could have been killed. And they saw my hand. They said, Bert, my gosh, we got to get you to a doctor. And I said, okay, well, where's the car? Oh, well, wait a minute, Bert. We can't do that now. We didn't get the shot. I said, what do you mean? Oh, we got 80 guys on this crew. It's $35,000 a half hour. We got to get the shot first. This was 7:45 in the morning, and I left for the hospital at noon. And over the next 4 days, I was in the hospital 3 out of the 4 days. From 2x4s coming down, breaking my nose, second-degree burns. I tell you, I didn't think I was going to survive the first week.
Less boy wonder and more, boy, I wonder when he's going to quit finally.
Well, but the studio was very smart. They're very smart. They took out a very large life insurance. The last 2 or 3 episodes, they were trying to collect on that policy.
Well, the glamour of show business. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody, as we pay tribute to Adam West and his co-stars for the Batman series. Also, Adam's work on Family Guy will be with us for many, many years to come, and we appreciate you guys being with us to share your stories. Thank you so much.
Wowing Zoe!
Have a great con, everybody. Enjoy Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic Con. Good night.